So good evening. My name is Dan Tolson. I'm Bodie's dad. Bodie's a brand new member. He's a ninth grader. And back in 2019, my older son, Benton, was on the 1678's robotics team. And 4 years ago tomorrow, I attended my first robotics event right here and got hornswaggled into being the build guy for the field elements. So 4 years ago, I would have never imagined I'd be here tonight giving a talk on how to build field elements, but here I am. So tonight, we're going to talk about the field elements. And field elements are structures of physical objects that the robot must interact with while the game is in play. For those of you who are new to the robotics world, FIRST releases a new game every year. That game is top secret. And thanks to the wonders of the internet, that game is released to the entire globe all at the same time. So everybody hits go and goes for it all at the same moment worldwide. The new game has rules, it has regulations, it has specifications, it has point scoring, all of which are laid out in a rule book. But it also has a field, which the game is played on. And on that field are elements, large structures. So let me get started with this show, because I just remembered. Got to do this part. So that's the title of my talk. So here's the field. And then the elements are these large objects that are on the field. And as I mentioned earlier, the robots must interact with these. They might bump up against, run over, climb under, or climb over, or go under. And some of them could be large and complex. And they're pretty solid. They're heavy, and they're complex to build. And every year, the field elements are different, and they get larger, more complexer, as I like to say. And sometimes they require a high level of accuracy. This is what we call the turntable. That's from 2019, or sorry, the 2020 build season, right before we all went into COVID. And that was a device that the robots were supposed to be able to spin and stop on a certain color and score a certain amount of points for it. I don't know if anyone ever actually did it, but we had to build it, and we had to build it accurately. So anyhow, specifications, get to that in a minute. Specifications and locations for the field elements are given as part of the rules of the game for every new competition. So every year they're different, and every year you got to figure them out, get the plans, make it happen. All right. So Steve Harvey, who has been the lead mentor of the team for a very long time, suggested that it's important for me during this talk to emphasize that the accuracy in building field elements is probably the most crucial thing you can do. Inaccurate or incorrectly built field elements will have a negative feedback on your robot and your team, or that your team builds. If your field elements are too low, too high, have components that are the wrong size or in the wrong place, it can greatly affect the design and the performance of the robot that you build, especially during the autonomous portion of gameplay. So you can imagine if you build field elements to practice with and they're slightly off, and you design your whole autonomous portion of your game to fit your slightly off field element, you're kind of out of the water, right? All right. So the accuracy of your field elements can make or break the success of your robot. It's not the only thing, but it is one of the crucial components of the successful robotics seasons. So additionally, I think it needs to be pointed out that the sooner that you can get your field elements into your practice area, the sooner your designers, builders, strategists can begin getting that crucial real-world feedback that will be necessary to perfect your strategy of the game, how you intend to play the game, and the design of your robot overall. So, if you can, you'll want to get your field elements built quickly enough that they are ready for the crucial tests of concepts that you're going to try early on in your design build process. I'm emphasizing within this talk of doing the build of the field elements within the first weekend, if possible. So Saturday and Sunday, early morning Saturday, the game gets released, and our goal would be to have our field elements on field by Sunday night. So how does that all happen? All right. How do highly intricate, structurally sound, accurately built field elements come into being? How do you build something complex quickly that you didn't even have the plans for 48 hours earlier? How do you make that happen? Does it happen like this? Obviously not. It takes planning, logistics, coordination. You'll need a budget, and most importantly, you'll need lots of help. And that's what I'm here to talk about tonight. Let's take these one at a time. Again, I said planning, logistics, coordination. Let's take these one at a time and try to bring them together in a cohesive way at the end of my talk. You'll need budget. Materials for the field elements will likely cost several $1,000s. Have a plan for this expense and how the materials will be purchased as soon as possible on the beginning of the build of your build. The morning of the release, right? Every team will handle this in a different way that works best for them, so I'm not going to pretend to have the advice on this part. Just know that it is a requirement to figure out how it works for you and how you're going to purchase the materials and probably where ahead of time. Planning. You'll need, you're going to need to do it. You're going to need to build the field elements. You know that ideally, if you're a team captain or one of the lead mentors or something, you're going to need to do it on opening weekend. And you know that you are already going to have your hands full. You're going to be pretty close to being completely overwhelmed. So you want to find someone else to do it for you, right? You find a volunteer. You find someone who's willing to put in that commitment and do it. And you want to get them to do it for you, right? So I think the most important early step in this process is to identify a number of people that are associated with your team who might have a reasonably good ability to build and make things and the capacity to coordinate and manage a diversely skilled group of people, and to do all that in a gracious and professional way. Why more than one candidate? Because most people have the common sense to say, are you crazy? I don't want to do that. And if more than one person agrees, the more the better, right? So thankfully, back in 2019, I did not have that level of common sense, and I stand before you here tonight a better man as a result. Hopefully, the person or people that you will be able to take this task on can fully manage all of the layers of the field element build and magically appear on, and that the field element build will magically appear on Sunday night of the release weekend with all the field elements built and ready for use. But probably not. It's pretty complex. They probably really don't know what they're getting into, and that's why they ended up saying yes in the first place. They really didn't know what they were getting into. So they're going to need lots of help, and the more that they realize, there's some things that they're going to need. So first off, they're going to need a place to build it. All right? This gentleman over here mentioned that earlier. Right? You're going to need a space. I think it is safe to say that most teams do not have a facility big enough to do the field element build within their space. At least not without also ruining their practice field or smothering the place and everyone in it with sawdust. You're going to need a different place to build. And it really, in all truth, is going to need to be bigger than someone's garage, even if their garage was empty. So it's going to need to be something large. You're going to need to line up a barn. This one's for you, bud. Or a tractor shed. Or a vacant warehouse. That facility should provide protection from the weather. It is January, after all. It's not really a human-friendly time of the year, at least not in the northern hemisphere. I smile when I think that someone on the other side of the globe is building their field elements while wearing shorts and t-shirts and worried about getting a sunburn. All right? This is what January should look like. So weather is a thing. Be prepared for that. The facility should have water. It should have restrooms of some sort. They should be appropriate, right? Should electrical power. and enough electrical power to run a couple of different chop saws or table saws or larger equipment all at once without blowing fuses or breakers or whatever kind of power they have. It should have lighting because it's going to get dark before you're done. You may be like happened to us. We're almost done Sunday night and it's getting dark because it is January. It's dark early. It's getting dark, and if we can just press on for a few more hours, we might be able to finish it. So, have some auxiliary lighting possibly. And you're going to need a crew to build it. Right? Line up as many volunteers as you can well before the event. Talk it up for months ahead of time. Hey, in January, we get this thing going. We really need as many able-bodied people as we can get there. And, even if you can only show up for a few hours, everything helps. Right? I would say, not everyone can be there for 10 hours for 2 days in a row. So maybe break it up into 4, 5, or 6 hour long sessions, maybe with some overlap in the middle so the people who've been there all morning can pass on some knowledge and information to the people who are coming in. Skills are really not needed. My experience is you can teach people the skills they need pretty quickly for a build event. What you really need is people to show up that are willing to do the work, who can work hard, who can be trained rapidly, and who are just, committed to the team and committed to doing a good job. Gonna need some food. At minimum, your crew will need lunches. Do everything you can to provide lunches for your build crew. You don't want to have a lunch break where people jump in their vehicles and drive away to go get the food because some of them aren't coming back, right? Keep them there. Make them a captive audience if you can. Give them as much food and coffee and tea and hot water and grab-and-go snacks and potato chips and whatever you can to keep people there. Just trust me, it works. Give them caffeine, for goodness sakes. You're going to want to have some sort of warmth. Again, it's January. Have a little, warming hut. Have a place they can go to, a room in the corner, an area that's set up with a heater, someplace that people can go and kind of get warm. Because if you're in some barn somewhere or an old warehouse, there's no heat. It's January. It's cold. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that there are crews or teams that are at this event that came down from the snow, or at that time of the year will be in the snow building their event, right? Building their field elements. And that's a whole another world for me, right? Anyhow, do your best to keep your volunteers warm and happy and well fed, and give them some amenities: water, restroom, place to get warm, some place to take a break. Kick it for a few minutes. Make sure you give them breaks. And an important thing is also make sure you have first aid. So I'm going to read this part because I think it's important. So many of your volunteers will be new to the use of power tools. Some of them, even to tools in general, believe it or not. I've had people show up and, tools are new to them. It's not part of their world, but they want to learn. This is a good opportunity for them to learn. So make sure that you have a good first aid kit. Doesn't have to be something crazy huge, but have one because you're going to need it. People get bad splinters or scrapes on their knuckles moving boards around, especially people that aren't used to moving boards around. They slide their hands along things that they shouldn't, and they get splinters. Right? So have a good set of tweezers and be ready to pull splinters out. Someone's going to get scraped up, right? That's a guarantee. So be ready with the Band-Aids. But also, hopefully, you'll have nothing more serious than some scrapes and splinters, right? Be prepared for something more serious, right? Something more serious could happen, so be prepared for that. Do people have the address where they are? If you're having a build event, someone gets hurt, someone picks up their phone, they even know what to say to the 911 dispatcher. Where are they, right? So post the address, post some information in a few different places. Have safety meetings before you get started or at the beginning of each little group of people that starts working, right, or each shift. Is the address posted outside on the street? If you're at some barn that's a quarter mile off the highway, can emergency services find that barn? turn right at the blue mailbox is probably not what you want to be telling dispatch in an emergency, right? So have that all worked out ahead of time. Just be prepared. Think it through a little bit, take steps, and prepare for contingencies. It's important. Not only is it important just because you want to take care of people, but also because people will sense that you care enough about them that you're doing what you can to keep them safe. When they see you giving safety meetings, when they see you showing them where the first aid kit is and providing them PPE, they're going to feel taken care of and appreciated differently than if it's just kind of a big Yahoo show and everybody's running around and people are, cutting fingers and whatever, right? And I mentioned PPE. Be prepared. Tell people what they need to bring, but also be prepared to provide people with safety glasses, maybe gloves for people that don't have tough hands or people that aren't used to working with wood. Hearing protection if people are using saws and things, right? Not everything on this list is appropriate, but it was what I could find. Have safety meetings at the beginning of shifts. Tell people where things are, where the safety stuff is, where the address is posted, that kind of thing. Take breaks. Take a break. Right? We can all work a little too hard. Make sure your crew, your volunteers have opportunities to take a break and a place to take that break that's warm and maybe they can get some food or water or whatever. And where was I? You want to try and be a guru, right? You want to not be driving hard against your volunteers. You want to walk around and guide them. You want to help them do the best job they can do. Not be so end goal driven that you're pushing people too hard. You want to push people enough that they can get the work done, that things can happen, that you can get this build done in the time that you hope you can. But you don't want to push them so hard that you make people unhappy or miserable with the experience, right? My philosophy is you want people to feel taken care of so that they have a good experience, that they remember that good experience, and they want to come back and have that same kind of experience again. Maybe they'll tell friends or other people in their family, hey, come and help out. I had a great time last year. That would be great, right? You get more people recruited that way. And as my son Bodie likes to say, with the grain, Dad, with the grain, right? You got to work with your crew, not hammering, but just keep them flowing, keep them moving. Right? Did I mention food? Have plenty of food. Keep people fed, especially in January when it's cold. Keep it going. So the next thing on my list was logistics. Right? One of the definitions of logistics that I found that I really liked was the detailed coordination of a complex operation involving many people, facilities, or supplies. Sounds like a build event, right? It's complex, a lot of different people, a lot of different facilities, a lot of different supplies. It's all got to come together to make this thing happen. If you want it to turn out well, you have to give it some thought ahead of time. You have to be prepared to handle the logistics portion of it. You've already got your human resources taken care of by now. Now what happens on build day? You don't just suddenly decide, oh, how are we going to get that? Who's going to get the materials? Who's going to bring the tools, right? So we'll stock tools. That's part of logistics. At a minimum, you'll probably need a table saw, chop saw, drills, impact drivers, mechanics tools, wrenches, sockets, that kind of thing. It really helps if there are some people on your build crew that can bring some of their own tools as well. The more impact drivers, the more drills and things like that you have, the faster things are going to go. If you have 2 table saws or 2 chop saws, you can set them up at different stations with different measurements and perform different tasks rather than be going back and forth resetting your table saw every 5 minutes to a new number, right? Or if you're using countersink drill bits on your drill, the more drills you have, the less times you have to swap it out with the impact driver to do the next step, right? You can kind of assembly line the process, and that makes it more efficient. It makes people have to work less hard, and everybody's happier, right? Nail guns can be, I know this isn't a nail gun, but it's just my image. Nail guns can also be handy in this process because you can tack things together before they actually get screwed together, right? And I don't mean big 16, Galvey 16, framing nail guns, but just simple finish nailers, just to hold pieces together while you can get some screws in it, because the pieces don't move around. They stay in place, and you need less people to hold something together while the first few screws get put into it. And again, take the time to teach some new skills to your build crew. Chop saws are a fairly safe way to help someone kind of feel like they can get moving forward in the idea of, it's not mine, it's yours. Chop saws are a good way to help people kind of move into carpentry or working with tools. They're pretty safe unless you got your hand in the wrong place. It's pretty hard to get injured by a chop saw, and people can feel good about that. That helps build confidence and skills for someone. Try to partner your skilled volunteers with people who are less skilled or want to learn. If you have your two best, most skilled people over in a corner doing something complex, who's helping the people with less skills? Maybe swap that, break them up and interact them. You probably get a lot more done. And I think people would feel better overall. The people with less skills will feel like they weren't abandoned and stuck doing something they didn't know how to do. The people with more skills are probably going to feel like, hey, I got to teach people some stuff today. That felt pretty good. The next thing on my list is transportation. Nope, plans, sorry. First, we'll give you a detailed set of plans that shows up with the rule book, right? It's a set of plans, shows all the field elements, very detailed in specifications, not only what the field elements look like, but where they are placed on the field very accurately. And so with those plans, they also provide a really accurate materials list and a really accurate cut list, which is really nice because you don't have to sit there and look at the plans and try and figure out how many pieces of 2x4 you need or how many 4x8 foot of what size plywood you need. You can just go with their list and you're good. I would suggest buying a few extra pieces. So there's the materials list. Buying a few extra pieces when you're at the lumber yard. If you're just barely scraping by on the exact lumber list they provide, somebody makes a mistake, it can be a train wreck moment for your process. And now someone's got to jump in the truck and go get a new piece of plywood or a new 2x4 because now you're one shy. It's a lot easier to get extra material ahead of time and return it later than it is to drop everything, stop the whole process, and run and go get something. It also feels a lot better to the people doing the work. The stakes aren't as high. Someone makes a mistake, no big deal. We can just keep rolling. Versus, oh man, who can drive to the hardware store and get another 2x4, right? Much different feel. So set it up to feel one way rather than end up feeling the other, because mistakes happen. You'll need a way to transport the materials, right? You got to go buy the materials and get them to the job, get them to the build site, wherever that is. And most crews are going to have someone on the crew, someone on the team, some mentor, some parent who's got a pickup truck or an SUV that can move around some 2x4s or some sheets of plywood. That's not a problem. That's the easy part. The harder part comes when you've built your elements and now you've got some giant, really big, heavy thing. You saw the pictures I showed earlier of some of our elements. You've got to transport from wherever you're building them back to your field. And that's not easy, right? So early in your process, when you're looking at the plans and you're seeing how big these field elements are and thinking about how much wood or materials are going in there, think about how you're going to get whatever you build back to the field. Start thinking about, we need a truck, or we're going to need a trailer or a flatbed. I better call my brother-in-law, right? Or, hey, maybe there's one of the team members, one of the parents can borrow a bigger truck from their work, from their job for the weekend. Maybe their boss would say, yeah, I'll lend you that truck. I believe in robotics. You can use the truck for the weekend, right? Line that up ahead of time because you're probably going to need it. Don't get there at the last minute and think, oh, gosh, that's big. How are we going to get that home? All right. Let's see. So I had some closing thoughts on that here. Yeah, you may need to, when you look at the specifications and the plans for the build, you may need to decide to like modularize it. Hey, if we don't screw these two parts together the way they show on the plans, we can leave these two separately. They're going to be easier to transport once we get them on site. We can reconfigure them as they're supposed to be and reattach them. You may be able to find a way to do that and save yourself the effort for the larger truck or the bigger trailer. Now it fits in somebody's pickup or on the flatbed that you already have. Yeah, so that's kind of it for all that advice stuff. I have 4 main goals as I go into a build weekend. So let's see, here they are. That everyone makes it through the process safely. That the crew is happy, that they have a good experience. That the field elements are well built and they're accurate to the specifications. Well built meaning they're not going to collapse right, when the robot runs into them or hangs from them or drives over them. And that everyone has a good learning experience. That they get to trade and gain new skills, because even the most experienced person on your build crew will learn something that day. I guarantee you that. In conclusion, I want to say thank you, that I'm honored to be a member of Team 1678. I want to thank the students and members of the team, the parents who support the team, the mentors, and so many other supporters, both in the community of Davis and around the world, who have done a lot to support 1678. I'm honored to work alongside all of you and to have the opportunity to share this with you tonight. So thank you. And appreciate it. And I was asked to put this at the end, take a little screenshot, and let us know how we did. Thank you guys, appreciate it. Anybody have questions?
Where does Citrus do our field build?
We've done it a number of places. So in 2019, when I did the build back before COVID, we had a ranch just west of town, out on Road 98, where somebody had a pretty substantial, what used to be a tractor barn. He had converted it, added some doors and things. But he had not just the barn, but he had a nice south-facing area in front of the barn. Weather wasn't so great. It was kind of almost sprinkling and foggy, you know how it is in Davis. But it was good enough. We could retreat inside and get out of the weather. And he had another barn next to it that was a warming hut and pizzeria.
What about last year?
I wasn't involved last year, so I don't know. Yeah, it would be interesting to know. Steve mentioned something about a place east of town. The previous place had been west of town, so I really don't know where it was. But I heard, yeah, well, wherever we can find, right? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You said you should get extra wood. Can you give like an estimate about how much wood that would be?
Well, 15 to 20% doesn't hurt. Again, the objective would be you don't make any mistakes and you take whatever next time someone goes to the hardware store, they can return whatever that is. Typically, most hardware stores will let you return material you haven't damaged or ruined. Right? So if you buy too much, you can return it. It doesn't end up costing you any more money, but it does give you the ability to press forward and keep going if somebody makes a mistake. Thought I saw your hand. Yes, sir? Oh, okay. Anybody else? Yeah?
Is there a minimum tool list? I mean, you rattled off something, but is there something that...
I haven't put together one, but maybe I could. Maybe apparently this video is going to go on YouTube, so maybe I'll stick something down in the notes. Yeah. Can't hear you. Next, anybody? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.